Comics Are Dope is brought to you by the greatest shop in the world, my LCS, Fight or Flight Comics. And no, I'm not biased at all. They have a great selection of everything from new weekly comics to back issues, rare variants and statues and collectibles. They've got all sorts of stuff. And if you really want to follow what's going on, you got to follow them on Instagram. That way you can see when they get new collections in, when their latest signing or in-store events are, and what's in stock. So check out Fight or Flight Comics in Raleigh, North Carolina in the Triangle Town Center Mall and tell them BJ Kicks sent you. Now, let's start the show. Well, guys, tonight's guest is a very special one, at least if you ask me. So I first found out about this writer through his work on The Flash, and he has quickly become one of my favorites through The Flash and Green Lantern. Like, yes, this man got me to care about Hal Jordan, at least enough to pick up the next issue. And now he's going to be the writer on Aquaman. So say what's up to DC's next superstar writer, Mr. Jeremy Adams.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming along, man. This was really good. So, I guess with the intro out of the way, I'll jump right in because, like I said, you started writing The Flash. This was actually right before my daughter was born. I only know that because I remember reading a chunk of issues while in the NICU. And,
man.
That first story arc where Wally basically, where Heroes in Crisis is retconned, basically.
Right.
And, I'm new to comics, so I had never read any Wally West or really much of anything at that point because that was 2021. I'd been reading comics like 2 years. But all I knew from like everyone on YouTube was that Heroes in Crisis was the worst thing ever. So I have to say, thank you. Thank you on behalf of me for undoing that so I don't have to hear about it from every other YouTuber in the world.
Isn't that funny? I mean, first of all, so your daughter or 3 years old now? Good, yes. Everything good?
She's great. She is great. And now we got another one on the way.
Oh, bro. So, I have two myself and two and through. That was my big thing. It's funny. It's like when they told me I could do The Flash, I was like, oh, I'm just going to kind of do Doctor Who. But I knew what the elephant in the room was. I knew that people were really mad about him as, a murderer. And continuity was really shaky and weird, and it's really, it's funny. I'm different than most people. A lot of people just hate Heroes in Crisis, but I really like Tom King's work, and I understood what he was trying to do. And even he says that like that ending was like kind of changed midstream or whatever. But whatever. I was like, I'm going to change this thing. And, and because to me, I was like, I'm going to put this in the context of him being a hero. And I really wanted to push into who this character was. And nobody knew who I was at all. Like every podcast I did, I was just promising people, I'm like, Wally's going to be okay. I promise, and everybody's just like, you're a liar like the rest of them. I could tell that absolute suspicion. But I'm trying to think when it changed because I feel like the tide in terms of people really just kind of like the way the vibe was. People were like liking it, they were getting excited about it, but somewhere after the Amethyst Eclipso arc, that's when it kind of broke open where people were like, all right, you weren't lying, like you're doing it, and I was like, oh, thanks, and started bringing in other characters and playing with the kids and stuff. But I mean, honestly, I think the suspicion level was so high, if the way I recall it, it was like people were like, yeah, sure, all the comments were like, well, for now.
Right. I know for me, that was what won me over right after the Amethyst arc, bringing in the kids, giving the kids the powers. And just for me, The Flash became like that family book that, I won't say it like replaced Super Sons, but it definitely kind of had that vibe, like the lighthearted book. I think even in the same token, right? Like And I guess this over the years I've kind of been broken from like just looking to YouTube for recommendations. But I remember like at the time it was like, okay, all these people that are complaining about like whether it's, conservative values or whatever the thing might have
Right.
been, I'm like, all of this stuff that you say is not in comics, it's in this Flash book,
Right.
and
Right.
nobody's talking about it. Like,
And it's funny because it's like I think comics should be all sorts of things.
hmm
And I was definitely like trying to make this a book that's like a safe haven.
hmm
And I would, I've talked to retailers like I want you to be able to like, and they would tell me after a while, they're like, I know that it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are. I can say, go read the Flash
right.
because it doesn't matter where you are on whatever spectrum. You can just read it and have a good time. And that's kind of, I think there should be more spots for that. That's what Super Sons was,
hmm
obviously. And I'm such a huge fan of Super Sons. It's when I wrote the movie, I was like, that was top of mind. It's something, even though there's a couple of bad words, which my daughter was like, why did they say some bad words? I'm like, that's not my fault. The
Right.
student, I mean, anyways, but yeah, yeah, I'm glad that that happened. It's definitely, it's weird though. The Flash started becoming, I was kind of morphing it into this like Fantastic Four
hmm
Incredibles thing when they asked me to step off of it. And then there was just a totally new dynamic, which was Green Lantern, which is far more serialized and far more soap opery, I guess. And then trying to, you know, Green Lantern has a lot of rules and mythology that it's much harder to get steeped in. So I don't get steeped in, I just blow everything up and then I can start over.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because, like I said, I mean, I was coming from like no experience with the Flash to okay, I like
Yeah,
this Wally West guy. Like, if all of his books are like this, let me go check out the Mark Waid or like Jeff Johns stuff, see what
yeah,
they've got going on. I've still yet to do that because
yeah.
life, but
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, there's just so much to read, right?
right,
And I mean, especially with Jeff. I mean, I was lucky because when I was reading Green Lantern, I was reading his book and Tomasi's Green Lantern Corps. And that was right before my first credit on television, the Green Lantern, the animated series. So I had like a leg up on that stuff.
Mhm.
But then, it's been several years since Hal Jordan has, a book is centered around Hal Jordan. And it was funny. The immediate people are like, oh, why does it have to be Hal? Why can't it be Kyle? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I just laugh because when I see moments like that, I'm like, okay, so my job is to make you like Hal. Like
Mhm.
that's the goal. And I don't know if I succeeded, but I definitely started, I don't know, just trying to get in the inner life of these characters a little bit and then just make this kind of sweeping, you know, Star Wars thing going on in space.
Right.
And then Zermanico, like I can't even tell you, he just sent me a bunch of art for I think issue 19 or 18 or 19. And I'm just like, this is crazy. He's such a good artist. And
Yeah.
it's an embarrassment of riches for me to be able to have somebody to partner with like that. And I've been lucky a great deal, even when in the Flash with Fernando and Amon K and all the people I've worked with, I've always felt like they've done such an incredible job, especially from somebody like me who I can't draw anything. I can't draw a straight line.
Right.
So
No, it's true. You have had some amazing artists.
yeah,
I know for me, and I won't say I was one of those voices. I wasn't like, oh, why does it have to be Hal?
right.
But one of the first reviews on my channel actually was me reviewing Green Lantern Rebirth. Because my whole thing was like, I don't particularly care, not even just about Hal, but about Green Lantern outside of like
Sure.
John Stewart for the animated stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but like, just don't care. And I
Yeah.
knew going into it that the thesis of Green Lantern Rebirth is that Hal's the greatest lantern to ever do it. And
Right.
and I kind of come out of it like I don't know. I mean, I guess he's fine. Like,
Ah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know, but it's
yeah,
like what everybody in that book says he's the best. So who's going to
yeah.
dispute that? I'm not here to dispute it.
Right.
Um, but and then just before your run, we had the Jeff Thorne run, which
Yeah.
kind of had Hal on the sidelines. And so
Yeah.
you're right.
Some
Like,
people hammer the Jeff Thorne run a lot, and I actually really enjoyed it. I read it in one sitting,
mhm,
and it was kind of this cool high concept sci-fi story that I thought was really cool. I
Right.
think that, if there was going to be a criticism, and I don't lobby criticism to anybody because who am I? But
Right.
like, I think it was like it's telling this epic sci-fi story that probably is better read altogether.
Hmm.
And I think it's like the Green Lantern of it,
Hmm.
I think there's less Green Lantern stuff happening. It's more John Stewart's doing his thing, Joe's doing her thing. A lot of them are sidelined and stuff. But I think, fans are fans and they're like, I want to see constructs and, so
Right. Right. And I think, I mean, because he's on record saying that was basically everything that we saw was just act one of what he had planned.
I could believe it. It felt the only thing I can compare it to is kind of Dune.
Mm,
It was this
yeah.
big thing.
Yeah.
And this environment with comics, I don't think there's enough time. Like, it's once a month, and it used to be that you could there would be enough sales that you could roll that for a while. And I
Right.
just feel like it feels like when you talk about movies that are like, well, it failed the opening weekend, it's dead, and you're just
Right.
like, we'll give it some time.
Right. It's been 1 week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with that, this was basically my first Hal Jordan book.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so for me, again, it was like, all right, let's see if this guy makes me care.
Right.
Um, and for a second, I was like, eh. Like I read
Yeah.
the first issue and I was like, I think the problem for me is not even so much like it's not anyone's writing in particular. It's just who Hal is as a character.
Yeah.
Just like feels so anti. Like, how do I put this? Right. So for the audience listening, you know this already, right? But I'm a black kid, right? And so like me growing up as a minority, there are certain things you just learn like super early because you don't have like the opportunity to like make mistakes, right? And the biggest of those things is respect for authority.
Right.
And so it's like there's no like talking back at the police officer or like whatever, bucking up against the system. So in my criticism of issue one, I'm like, uh, this movie or this comic reminds me of Top Gun. And
Right.
on one hand, that's cool. It's like action packed. But on the other hand, Tom Cruise is still Tom Cruise, and he should have learned how to be a good person long before Top Gun, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that's been my hang up with Hal.
Yeah.
But with this book, with this series, one, the action is like there's so much of it, and you get the cool constructs. Like there was the Godzilla and Mecha Godzilla
Yeah. Yeah.
constructs.
Yeah.
Like there,
Yeah.
just so many like really cool action pieces going. And then there's that heart. I think maybe issue four, Wally makes an appearance, and
There.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
or Barry and uh Hal is like kind of lets his guard or becomes vulnerable for a second, and he's
Right.
just talking about how like he lost Carol and he's not really like trying to get her back. Like he wants her to go be happy. And I'm like, oh, this guy does know empathy. This guy does know how to
Right.
be a good person. Right. And then that was enough to hook me in. Like, okay, well, let's see if he learns his lesson. Let's see like how things
Yeah.
go. And we're kind of still on this journey, 15 issues later.
Yeah.
Um, but that was my thing. It was like, okay, even with gosh, not to spoil this whole storyline, but even with Carol, it's like, as the
Yeah.
series opens up, Carol's with someone else.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, is she gonna do that thing where she wants to be with the bad guy just because he's the bad guy or the bad boy? Right. And it's
Right.
like, well, let's see how this plays out. Um, and so I don't know. Like I said, kind of stuff is still up in the air. And I think
Yeah.
there's a really cool twist in the last few issues um, that I don't, again, want to spoil, but we're here. The book's out.
Yeah.
But I guess without spoiling anything, I will say that just sort of every reservation that I've had just as a reader, or maybe because I'm a dad, like the things that I consider, right? They've all, you've kind of rolled out cases for all of those different things. It's like you thought about all of that stuff too,
Yeah.
and you found like a reason for it to be confronted in the story. And it really is like challenging to Hal's character. And I think that has been the thing that's kept me interested. It's kind of won me over.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. I think what's interesting with a lot of these characters that are kind of Silver Age characters
Hmm.
is that when they were written, there's so much of a cipher for anybody that was reading them. There wasn't a lot of deep plunging into their thought life or their emotional life. And so, with Wally and even with Hal, it's like being able to do that, being able to investigate like why he's this way or whatever, and having those conversations, I think are, I don't know, they just humanize you a little bit so that when you take them on a journey, you care about the character, you know?
Hmm.
And I don't feel like it takes that much to do it.
Right.
It's because I don't think that we're all, as humans, we're just breaking down every 5 minutes talking about, our deep emotional turmoil. But when you're in a trusted space with Barry, or you're dealing with the idea of loss of Carol, and it's funny, and even Carol, dating this really nice guy, it's funny. When I first started writing it, I said this before. I go, I have no idea if they end up together. Like, I have
Hmm.
no idea. I don't know in the story what happens because I'm not convinced of it, you know? And
Hmm.
it really was the issue where they flash back to Hal as a kid and Carol
Hmm.
as a kid. And that was the thing that kind of like that, like, the misnomer that they're both under in a way is like, how can you be in love with somebody you've known your entire life?
Hmm.
And that's the thing they keep struggling against and toward and stuff like that. So, I don't think it's, I mean, obviously because of comic books being comic books, it's not over in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But for now, I really like Carol being, kind of taking on the mantle of superhero. But there's so much other stuff happening in in the universe
Hmm.
that there's a little bit of a side step. And we try to do this thing when we were doing backup issues. I was like, can we just make sure that the backup issues matter? Like,
Right.
can they matter to the overarching story, that we can check in with all these other lanterns and seeing where the lanterns are? Because it's definitely, I find myself doing this. I did it on the Flash. It's like I love touching base with characters and trying to give a different shade to them and a different dimension to them, and so that we care about them and we can know more about them, and then start rolling them into the story so that they're all part of the story now. They're all like a huge part of um, this crazy United Planets, Theros. And then when we took John from Philip's story and all of Philip's evil characters, like it's a bit of a handful, but
Right.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this kind of arc ends, and
Hmm.
this will reset for the next arc in a way.
Hmm. So I'll ask this. I ask this all the time. I don't know why, but um, so we've gotten what, I guess at least 18 issues in the
Yeah,
solicits
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
Green
18
Lantern,
and like two specials. Yeah.
right? And so how much longer do you feel like you want to keep telling Hal Jordan stories or Green Lantern stories
I
at this
know,
point?
I've had this discussion with my brain a lot,
Hmm.
and there's part of me that's jealously wants to do it until they kick me off like the Flash, but I don't really want the heartache of that either.
Hmm.
So I kind of know where I want to stop. And just because, for no other reason than, there's lots of other really great writers out there, and and there's other characters I want to, like, get into.
Hmm.
But I say that advisedly, because then last night I was like, oh crap, I got another idea. Like, so then
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's another 6 issues or whatever. So I tend to get a bunch of ideas, and then I want to see them come out. But I I hear you. I kind of know where it is. I don't want to say
Hmm.
where it is, but I kind of know where it is, and it'll probably be a good time for me to go, all right, but it's further enough away that we don't really need to think about it too much.
Well, that's good. That's good. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, selfishly, like I just want to be a reader that is like, hey, I got in on the ground floor
Right.
and, you know, this epic 90 issue run on
Right.
Green Lantern that Jeremy Adams started. And I remember when he was just doing Flash.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now,
yeah. Well,
and
I
I,
mean, I like I said, I would love to do that. I also just think that the way that the business is, I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody gets that long of a tenure anymore. You
Hmm.
know, it's
Yeah.
like they have to refresh the book just because they have to bump it with a one,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. And what do I know? Literally, I don't know. But I'm just saying that like if I keep doing really good, really interesting ideas, I'm going to keep doing it. But
Hmm.
I have a long string of ideas I want to do now. There are a bunch of other characters I would love to get my grubby little paws on, though.
Hmm.
So, um, you know,
And And it seems like that's happening, right? Like, so I do want to take a little bit of a step back, right? Because you
yeah.
said you had like an unconventional entry into comics. And I can see behind you, right? There's a bunch of stuff that some stuff that you've worked on, some stuff looks like you're
Yeah.
just a fan of.
Yeah.
That is an amazing button collection. The Batman
Oh my
buttons.
gosh. So all these, my wife wonderfully, all those in 1989, I was wearing every one of those buttons. I probably had more. Like
Mm,
the Batman '89 fever was hitting me hard, and I had all those on this jacket
mm,
that I wore all the time. And then I just, I put them in something. My wife put them in a shadow box for me. It always
mm.
reminds me that it's the thing that I literally go back to over and over again. Is 8-year-old Jeremy is like, dude, this is it. Like you're doing what you've always dreamed and never thought you could,
Right,
And it's really it's such a humbling and strange experience to be doing it. I mean, I don't know how other way to talk about it. It's like I've done all these animated things and movies and stuff, and I really, really love it. And they pay much better. But um, with animation, it's like you write something and it's like 2 years later before you see it.
right,
And there's an immediacy to comics that I really, really enjoy. And I really enjoy that there are less people trying to dilute whatever creativity you're trying to put into something, which is great. But I've lived with these characters in my head for so sneaking long that it's been a joy to be able to, you know, write. But yeah, these are
sure.
all you can see stuff. Alan Burnett had signed this one for me. Alan Burnett was one of the writers on Batman the Animated Series and
Mm,
just incredible guy. I worked with him on Justice League Action there, and
nice.
uh, and yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff. These are my toys from when I was a kid. All the superpower stuff.
Wow.
I have tons of that stuff that have been beaten and loved. My kids like. And then on the other side, I have movie posters that I've done and yeah. But that I got into comics the opposite way. I would always try to like figure out a way to get into comics, but um, the first time I got to pitch on a comic was like 10 years ago. Mike Martz, my editor in chief at Mad Cave, where I do Flash Gordon,
Hmm.
he was the first guy who ever let me pitch on something. It was a Batwing book,
Mm.
and unfortunately, it went with some no name named Warren Ellis. But that was the first time I got pitched. I was like, oh, I was so close, and I had so many of those. Oh, I was so close for the next 10 years until DiDio called up Warner Brothers Animation and got a list of writers for animated superhero stuff, and I was on the list, so it was
Mm.
great. I got to be in this room with all my friends, and they're telling us about this thing called 5G, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it! I'm going to be able to pitch. Oh my gosh, I pitched a couple things. They didn't want to do it at all, and then the Didio left, and one of the editor, my name is still on a list, and he asked me to do a couple backups in Future State, and then after that, I just get a call, and he's like, you have any ideas for the Flash? And I'm like, bro, I've got I've got ideas for everything, and I kind of pitched him the quantum leap-ish idea. And he's like, great, that's better what we got. The Flash is yours. And that was just, I mean, there was no pomp or circumstance. It was like, well, you can take it. It was that kind of vibe. I was like,
Mm.
okay. And I literally just thought, um, I started writing it and I had a goal. I had a certain number I wanted to write, but then very early on, I could see 800 in the distance. And
Hmm.
I kept thinking like, I'm going to make it to 800. I'm going to make it to 800. And I stupidly said it to Jeff Johns. I said it to Tim, and they both kind of chastised me for like, what, Jeremy, that's pretty arrogant, and I'm like,
Uh,
no. and I was already planning. I was like, I want Josh to be on this, Mark Wade and Jeff, and I had to convince not them. I had to convince DC, and they didn't believe that they'd want to do it. I'm like, why wouldn't they want to do it?
Right.
So they were all game for it. So I have a really cool Flash 800 signed by Jeff and Mark and Josh over here that say some
Nice.
really nice things on it. It's like prized possession.
That is awesome. And so to literally kind of, I hate this phrase, but to be plucked out of relative obscurity
Yeah,
and to just be kind of thrust into your dream career, right?
right.
Like I can see the joy, right? You're one of my favorite follows on the site formerly known as Twitter. Uh,
Yeah,
and so for you guys who don't follow Jeremy, uh, every so often, Jeremy will get his comps for like whether it's trades, it could be single issues, it doesn't matter. Like
yeah,
if Jeremy's got a book coming in stores and it comes to his house, he's like, yo, unboxing time.
yeah,
And like sometimes his kids are in on it, but it's like every time I just see the pure joy, like, yes, I wrote this thing
yeah,
and it really exists and I have a copy and you can have one too. Isn't
yeah,
this amazing? Like, I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, my kids are hilarious with it. My youngest especially, she gets everybody's just like, oh gosh, we're gonna be sick because she's twisting the camera. It's always a miracle to me, man. Like I see all these books now, and I just kind of like I kick myself, and I'm just like, oh man, don't please keep letting me do this.
Right.
You know, there's a very much me just saying that over and over again, and just try not to screw it up. You know,
Right.
and I put a lot of pressure on myself in that regard because I keep thinking, oh gosh, with Green Lantern, I was really scared, and then you kind of like you sink into it a little bit, and I'm terrified of Aquaman too because I think Aquaman is like a really tough nut to crack,
Mm,
and I think it's a really hard character, I think, to write that people will get on board with, I guess. Um, but we'll see.
right.
I'm doing something a little different, so we'll see if people dig it or not. And I'm hoping they do. I hope they can kind of join on the adventure of it because it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna
Yeah.
be totally. I think it's totally gonna be different than what people think it's gonna be.
Mm. I definitely want to get to Aquaman in a second.
Yeah.
But I also want to get to Flash Gordon. And
Yeah.
so Flash, I don't know. I do a show every week called The Pull List where I'll just shout out books that I'm excited to buy the coming
Yeah.
Wednesday. And I did like a free comic book day preview. I do one every year because free comic book day got me into comics. And so it's always
Oh,
just a
cool.
big deal for me. And so I'm going through all the list. It's like, okay, we got gold and silver and so on. And Mad Cave's got a Flash Gordon book. And I'm like, I know nothing about Flash Gordon except like that cameo in Ted.
Yeah.
And then, but this cover looks cool. And Jeremy Adams is writing it. At this point, I'll at least give 3 issues to anything Jeremy Adams writes,
That's
right?
kind. That's kind.
And so I see it, I'm like, this just looks fun. Like it just looks like it's gonna be good. And Will Conrad drawing it is just
Yeah.
amazing. And so
Yeah.
I grabbed the free comic book day issue and I'm like, this is it. I'm hooked. Like the first of all, I love that it was a 0 issue. Like a lot of times the free comic book day book is just like a few pages from a new
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one that's
Yeah.
coming a couple months from now. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this was its own thing.
Yeah.
And it really does set up the world that we enter with issue 1.
Yeah.
And, we get like, this swashbuckling, spacefaring adventure dude. Uh, but by the end of that 0 issue, it's like, oh, snap. Like, no, he did something stupid. And the consequences for this are going to be very far reaching.
Yeah.
Um, and then we get that break and then the series starts. Um, and at this point, I think I've only read the first 2 issues. I think issue 3 is out already. But New York Comic Con and raising kids. But
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
yeah, so I've read the first 2 issues and it's gotten me like, and I feel like we mentioned Heroes in Crisis, right? Like there is a writer that, that probably undeservedly has this rap for like taking obscure characters and giving them a sad story that is emotionally compelling, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if there's a stick for you right now, it's taking characters who maybe aren't just obscure, but haven't gotten their just due in a while, and just giving them stories that just make them feel like they're the most exciting versions of themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like I feel like you brought the hope back to Wally West. I feel like you brought just excitement to Hal Jordan while keeping it emotionally compelling. And this Flash Gordon book really does feel like balancing the weight of almost like Star Trek, where you're kind of stepping into different worlds and
Yeah.
the politics of these different worlds, and you're trying to keep, everything in balance while going for what you want and desire as well. And I just love it.
Oh,
I
good.
again,
Good.
what
That's fun. That is a fun book to just sit down and it can go anywhere, you know. I kind of
right?
know the direction it's at, and that, you know, it's so funny. It's just so funny because I oftentimes, with me anyways, a lot of the big story points come out of some sort of weird editorial note that's
Mhm.
like, you know, we don't really want to say Mongo or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not going to track that. Then I'm going to just blow up Mongo. Like, you know, like, you know, like, and same thing with Green Lantern. Somebody was like, oh, this mythology, I can't wait to see it. And I was like, uh-oh, I don't think I know as much about this mythology as I thought I did. And then
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, we got to tear it all down because I can't, you know, I'm just stupid and I'll screw it up. And, you know, it's a way to also just get away from the norm, you know, in a
Mhm.
way. But with Flash, it's interesting because people have like a weirdly subconscious knowledge of him in a
Mhm.
way. It's like you said, the TED, or when I was growing up, the old movie was big, but it was just like, again, it was like a lot of the Silver Age I talk about, even though it predates that. But there were these square jawed heroes that just saved the day. And you don't know much beyond that. You don't know
Mhm.
much deeper than that. And so to do something so crazy with him, and then the fallout of that will start, showing up a lot more in his daily life. But I also am keenly aware that I'm writing, I like superheroes. I like heroes.
Mhm.
I like to give people chances of redemption. I don't like to be sad. There's a reason I don't spend my time watching a lot of drama because I
Mhm.
don't like it. I got
Right.
enough in my own life. I want to watch comedies, I want to watch action movies, I want to see redemption, I want to see people come back from the brink because that's the stuff that keeps me motivated and makes me excited, and that's what I love. And so giving these characters those chances um, is really fun, really, really fun. And with Flash Gordon, just being able, because they've done a lot of, there's not been a lot of Flash Gordon comic books in the past
Mhm.
that I didn't know about. And so you never know if it's gonna break through a little bit. Um, but and really, there comes a point where you're thinking about it in terms of like, oh, I hope people read it. But then there's a point where you're just like, I don't care. I'm having fun writing it. You
Right.
know, there's a couple movies I've done where I'm like, I know for a fact I don't think people are going to like this, but I do not care because I love it so much. You
Right.
know, and that's a great spot to be in as a writer because you're just excited about doing it. You're not excited. You're kind of critic proof at that point because you love it,
Right.
and that's a wonderful place to be, and it's a hard place to be because I'm a self-doubting writer that
Right.
every time I put a script out I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible.
Yeah. No, I was speaking to a creator a couple of weeks ago, who's from Russia, and we were talking about kind of the differences in like just the buying habits and appetite of like a European market versus like America's. And she was telling me about how like a lot of the stuff that she read growing up or when she was getting into comics was like horror, or like it might have been like just sad. And we talked a little bit about like the creating from a place of like catharsis as
Yeah.
opposed to like escapism, right? And
Mm.
it sounds like you've kind of decided like, oh, I'm going to have fun with whatever I'm doing. But was there a part like of your journey where you're like, well, I have to do like the serious thing. Like Stan Lee's like, I got to do the great American novel at some point. And like, did that have to be worked out of you, or were you always sort of chasing the thrill ride?
No, I think I've been chasing the thrill ride in a lot of ways. And most of what I write, you always have to have an element of heart, but in terms of like the trauma or the twisting of the knife and certain things like that, I do feel like there's going to come a point where I'm going to have to do something that, people are going to be mad at.
Mhm.
But maybe they'll be mad. It's one of those things where it's comic books too. Like if you have a 10,000 foot perspective, know that whatever that is can be changed.
Mhm.
Whatever that is can be something that can lead to a better story. Like when I did, even when I was doing Green Lantern, the note from above was, well, just write a note saying that everything's changed, everything went back to normal from Jeff Thorne's run. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm a nerd. Like
Right.
I got to tell a story about how things change and how things come back. I can't have it just the Guardians are back and everything is normal. Like I can't do it. I can't do it. And
Mhm.
because I'm a continuity guy. But in terms of the other stuff, I mean, there's so many stories at this point and ideas and stuff I have in my head. I have too many that I'll never be able to put out, which stinks in some ways. But um, there are more serious stuff I would like to do. There's much more serious stuff I would like to do. But getting the opportunity to be paid to do it is a different scenario. I
Right.
mean, there's a couple of DC things that I really, 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 really want to do. And one of them has a very like sad, element to it, but in a heroic sense, sad. And
Mhm.
and I don't think I'm not a nihilist, I'm not a deconstructionist. I'm not going to be somebody that sadness doesn't just happen for a reason. I think about something like Braveheart. It's like it's an unbelievably sad,
Mhm.
but it's also just, you want to grab a sword and fight injustice at the end.
Right.
So I always think about the meaning of that. Like I just don't want to leave people just feeling sad for sad's sake. I'm not the movie Seven. That's not who I am. And I don't need to be that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but who knows? Maybe someday I'll be like, what's in the box? And it's the head of Captain Adam. No, just
Uh,
kidding.
my wife refuses to watch that movie. I don't know. We're just talking about it in passing, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a serial killer, seven deadly sins, you know? And she's like, well,
Yeah.
you spoiled the movie. I'm like, what? That does not spoil
Yeah,
that
totally.
movie. But she's like, no, I'm never watching it. You already spoiled
That's
it.
funny. I saw it as a double feature in college with this movie called Once Were Warriors,
Mm.
which is just heart-wrenching movie, just a heart-wrenching movie. And both of those was just like a double feature of like, oh, I felt my mental health was not great after
Right,
that.
right. Yeah, we watched that movie. It was 10th grade civics class. We had taken final
Wow.
exams, and there was nothing left to do for the last few days of school. And my teacher's like, yeah, we're gonna watch this. Like,
What?
I
They let you
could,
watch it in school?
I don't know if
Wow.
I don't know if they let us. I think that
Ah!
teacher just decided we were gonna watch it.
That's intense.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was crazy.
and so uh, we missed each other at New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
We've got a mutual friend, my man Trevor. Shout out to Trevor Fernandez Linkevich, good old TFL. But I'm walking the floor of New York Comic Con, and he's like, "Hey, while we're here, like at some point this weekend, I want to introduce you to Jeremy Adams." And I'm like, "Hey, works for me because I was
Yeah.
planning on meeting him anyway." And then I didn't see Trevor again until the last night of the convention.
Hilarious.
And so, but I passed by your table a couple of times and you also weren't there. But there was one
Yeah.
time I passed by and I'm like, oh, wait, he's at that panel where they're announcing that he's writing Aquaman.
Yeah.
So, how does that feel?
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like it's weird. It's weird. It's always weird. Conventions are weird for me now because I have too much. I'm sitting there like I stood in line to meet Fabian Nicieza. I don't know how you
Hmm.
say his last name, but I was just standing in line to fanboy out and tell him that like he's a big reason why I write the way I write. There's a few of those guys, and JM DeMatteis, and there's so many of those guys that I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are people that really affected me growing up. so there's this fan part of me that's just like freaking out.
Right.
And then there's this other part of me that's like, oh yeah, but you got to go up on a panel with these guys or whatever. And I'm like, shut up. Like I'm constantly like flabbergasted. And it's hard too because my editor is the one who ran the panel, and and he starts asking me questions, and I'm looking at him like, we can't tell him that. Like, and he's like, oh, I guess we can't. And I'm like, yeah, man, like we can't tell him anything. And it drives me crazy because solicits and stuff. I'm like, this is spoiling.
Right.
It
Right.
makes me crazy. But yeah, it's a really great feeling. And I think DC is having this really cool moment. Not just with the absolute stuff, married to kind of the all-in stuff, but you have James Gunn doing the DC movies, and I feel like everybody's really trying to like, has each other's backs
Hmm.
and is like trying to get the word out and really trying to promote the books from within, which is really fun. And I'm enjoying the heck out of it. Like I said, Aquaman, I got to meet John Timms, who's the artist on Aquaman, and I had never met him. And just like the sweetest guy in the universe. And I think that even he, after the panel, was like, he was amped. He's like, we can go crazy. I'm like, oh,
Right.
okay. So it's very inspiring. It's very challenging because you're also slightly competitive. So you're kind of like, oh, I gotta up my game. Look at what these people are putting out there, really
Yeah.
amazing things.
Yeah, no, it's funny. You're right. Like I have not seen a buzz like this around DC since I started reading comics. There's been quite a few like sort of starts and stops, like with the whole dawn of DC,
Yeah,
and then Night Terrors kind of
yeah,
popped that balloon,
yeah,
and then little did we know this whole time this all in and absolute stuff was brewing.
yeah.
And so now it feels like DC is having a moment. I have never seen so many tweets that begin with, I read this book. It's amazing,
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah,
it's,
it's such a good feeling. And I'm such a comic fan. Like right now, I mean, at Marvel, which I love Marvel, but it's really impenetrable for me right now to really figure out the reading order or like how to like, okay, but what's does this book go in between this book? Like I'm not sure,
right.
I'm not sure of anything anymore. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know where we are in the universe, and I've tried to follow it because I have Marvel Unlimited,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of stuff I read, but I'm sure they're going to figure it out, and maybe I'm just being dense. But in the meantime, I'm on this journey with these people that are really, rah rah, and we're all just like really pushing forward and trying to have fun. And what DC to me is supposed to be this kind of like beacon of hope and larger than life characters, and it's really fun. In fact, today I just read Justice League Unlimited by Mark Waid, and I was just like, this is so much fun. This is such a fun book, and Mark Waid obviously is no slouch to this stuff. With Dan Mora's art, you're just
Right.
like, you can't go wrong, man.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. It's okay. You can send it to me. I won't tell
Oh
anyone.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I won't
Uh,
at all get in trouble.
it's just the whole internet here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But yeah, no, it really does feel like everyone at DC is kind of pushing in the same direction, and
yeah,
and it shows. Um, and we're getting all these books. Like I don't even want to. I'm supposed to be doing a video about like my most anticipated titles for November. I'm
yeah.
dreading making that list. So I'm gonna have to cut the list at five. Knowing me, I'll probably put in like seven.
Right.
Uh,
Honorable mention. Yeah, yeah,
right, right. First runner up, second runner up,
yeah, yeah,
third winner. But
yeah.
it's like there's just so much stuff coming out. We got
Yeah,
this question book coming.
yeah.
Renee Montoya
Alex
book
Segura. Yeah,
looks amazing.
yeah.
Justice League Unlimited, like you
I
said.
just read that. I just read the question one too, and
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And I like Alex though. So he's great. He did a backup in Night Terrors with
Mhm.
Sinestro, and he's been killing it on Dick Tracy. So
His Dick Tracy's really good,
yeah.
really good. So yeah, but it's just I just got these DC Finest collections. 'Cause I'm doing a
Oh,
video about those,
oh, cool.
and like it's just like I don't know. It just feels like a great time to be a
Those are
DC
cool.
fan.
Those are really cool.
These things like I guess they're like competing with like the Epic collections from Marvel, but I love the way the
Yeah, but I
spines
think the
line up.
price point is it's slow low, and it's like, and I'm seeing them in other places, which is
Hmm.
always the thing about it that's always killed me is when I grew up, comic books were everywhere, and I'm always kind of like, we got to get them back in places like Target and Walmart and where people are, And I've
Right.
seen those, which is it pumps me up because I'm like,
Nice.
oh, that's a good gateway drug, get you
Right.
in.
Right. Because we got the those compact books are like $10. And then they've got these that are like 40. But these
Yeah,
have like a huge chunk of issues in them.
yeah,
And I don't know. I gotta be careful because
yeah, dude. You got kids. You got to watch
yeah,
out.
exactly. Exactly. And then I'll be the one like, oh, I gotta have like every year between 1938 and
Yeah,
1988. It's like,
yeah.
no, let's not do that.
Oh, it's
But
bad, man.
but
It's bad.
yeah.
The thing for me now is Fernando originally he sent me a piece of original art, the first appearance of Gold Beetle.
Mm,
And I opened it, and I was like, uh-oh, I didn't know this was going to be an addiction. And now it's like I'm begging my artist, like, hey, could you just like set aside a page for me? And now I've got all these pages that I'm just like, this is amazing. And then I'm looking at other pages at
mhm.
conventions, and I'm like, I can't spend this money. I
Listen,
cannot do it.
I have held out for the longest. Like I have one piece of original art that one of my friends gifted me. And it's not even from a comic. I think it's just like somebody just did like a pinup,
Yeah,
but it's like I got the inks on blue line. It looks cool. And it's
yeah,
Miles Morales. I love Miles Morales.
yeah.
But Dennis Cowan has a Kickstarter going for they're doing an Art of Dennis Cowan book, basically.
Wow.
And one of the perks was an original art page from his latest Icon versus Hardware series. And I was like, when am I going to get an original Dennis
Right,
Cowan page,
right,
especially for this price? So
right.
we are closing on our new home like the week after that Kickstarter closes.
Oh man.
And that's
Oh
the
man.
first thing that's going on my wall.
Oh
Like,
man, that's amazing. That's
it's going to
amazing.
be fun. But hopefully I
Yeah,
don't buy
I just
anything
saw
else.
like Rob Liefeld, like he just posted today, like the first appearance of Deadpool went up. I think it started at like 140,000 bucks.
That's insane.
It's insane, but like there was a cover for Flashpoint Beyond #1 that Mitch Jared's did,
Mhm.
and I was it was like $10,000,
Mm.
and I'm like calling my wife like it's an investment, like trying to convince her, and then somebody in Canada bought it, and I was like, I'm both relieved and mad, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that if it wasn't this Kickstarter, I don't know if I'd ever buy a piece of original art. Because even just I did a Hakes auction a while back,
Yeah,
and it's like it's not like eBay. You can't just go in and snipe. It's like,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
every time somebody bids high, it's like another 20 minutes on the clock. And I'm like, it just gets out of control.
I know. I know. My dad he was an artist and he had drawn some stuff, and I've been accumulating bit by bit because they're still expensive, even an old page from something that like who else would care about it except me, you know?
Right.
But but it's like $300 a page. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, oh, you know.
Insane.
Yeah.
There was this is such an aside, but
Sorry.
there was a Jim Lee page from the Milestone Returns special. He drew it was like that Milestone Returns book, like everybody got like 1.5 pages on it somehow. And Jim Lee draws this great icon, just he's just flying.
Yeah.
And it was on eBay for like $200. And back then that was like my life savings. So I was like, I
Yeah.
can't buy this. Now
Yeah.
I'm like, I could have had that
I
page for
know. You
$200.
could have. You could have. And the whole like it's funny because I met Dwayne McDuffie once.
Mm,
And my mentor was really good friends with him. And I remember when he passed away because my mentor was just shattered.
mm,
But he was such a nice guy when I met him. We had a huge argument, but it was like a respectful argument about
mm.
copyright, you know? But he was so smart. And then it was like after the fact, people were like, do you know who that is? I'm like, no, I'm an idiot. Just started an animation. And he's like, this guy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, crap. What an
Yeah.
awesome, he did everything. He did everything. The
Ever.
stuff that he did, I was reading his Justice League and,
Hmm.
Static, and just the fact that he was Milestone was just such a, and his wife, Charlotte, was so sweet. Like I wish I would have been able to meet, like if I would have known exactly who I was talking to,
Hmm.
it wouldn't have been about copyright law. It would have been like, so tell me everything about,
Right. They Charlotte just put up his website again. Like they kind of revamped it and put like
Yeah,
a bunch of old scripts and stuff up there.
amazing.
And so like it's just been really cool to go through those archives and read all his plans for Justice League if he hadn't got booted off. And
He had a
uh
huge impact. Like even working with Bruce Timm, he would talk about him and people just loved that guy. And he just was good. He was just good. Everything he touched was just so smart.
right. And so all right. Sorry, Jeremy. I hate that I took us down these rabbit
Yeah,
holes.
yeah, yeah.
But Aquaman.
Yes.
So you are writing Aquaman. When's issue one come out?
January, I think.
Nice, nice. And so what can you tell us about like sort of the starting point for this series? What state is Arthur
So
finding himself in?
after Absolute Power, people have kind of switched. There's a lot of powers that have been kind of switched up a little bit. And so Arthur has a he has hydrokinesis. He has
Mm,
Amara's ability to be able to manipulate water, but he's not perfect at it yet. Um, the throne of he's retaken the throne of Atlantis post Absolute Power just to get things back in order. The
mm,
idea is like, hey, I'll be king long enough for us to fix everything that's gone on, and then a water kaiju appears and everything goes absolutely bananas. That's
mm,
all I can tell you. You
right.
know?
And so Aquaman's coming from like not having a title for some years. He had a book
Yeah.
when I first got into comics, but it got canceled like, I don't know, shortly after I started reading books.
Yeah.
And it's been a meme. Like Aquaman doesn't have a book. Aquaman doesn't have a book.
Yeah.
Although they've done several like miniseries. I think
Yeah. Like Aquaman.
right.
Yeah.
They had a Black Manta series. So like we've played in that world.
Yeah.
But I guess for all intents and purposes, the last real big moment Aquaman had was probably the Jeff Johns run in New
Right.
52. So how does it feel for you, like kind of picking this mantle up once again from someone who was last great when Jeff was writing them and saying like, you know what, I'm on this thrill ride. We're gonna have some fun.
I mean, Jeff's a friend, and like now he's a friend, but I joked with him. I saw him in New York and I was like, so evidently they've got me on the Jeff Johns track, like Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman. I just need to start up a company that's called like Phantom, engineering or something. Yeah.
Phantom
Um,
Fireworks.
and we laughed about it, but again, it's a hard character. It's just a hard
Mhm.
character, I think, for people to get a grip on. But I'm I'm excited about trying it, see if people like it. They'll let me know very quickly if I've screwed it up. And so will DC.
That's
But
true.
it I'm always intimidated by picking up these characters because so many better to me, like it's not just being humble, but I think a lot of like self-doubt is like, there's so many incredible people have written these guys. So I'm just like, well, how can I make my mark on this? How can I take this in a different direction? And then you have my collaborators like John Timms or Zermanico on Green Lantern. It's like, talking to them like, what do you want to see? What do you want to have fun with? I want you to be invested in this as much as I am so that we can have fun doing something together. Um, but this isn't so much a fun haha book. This isn't so much a like, oh, isn't this so joyful? This is a very it's tonally a little different. It's a little more serious, I think, in some ways.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's there you go.
All right. So Aquaman number one comes out January 8th,
Excellent.
2025. It's written by Jeremy Adams with art by John Timms. Man, they've already got some of these variants up.
Crazy.
Yvonne Reyes has a variant that looks
Dude.
amazing. Tula
Again, it's gonna be
Lotes.
like, oh man, I get these comps and I'm like, oh man, I got tons of comps I gotta put
Right?
somewhere.
What do you do with your comps? Do you take them to a library? Are there kids you donate them to?
No, I'm not that altruistic. No, actually, I pull aside whether or not my kids are ever going to want this, but I pull aside a copy of
Mm,
each cover for my daughters and I put them away.
okay.
And then I keep a copy for myself. and the rest of them usually go to Comic Sketch Art, which are the people that send me around to different conventions, and they
Mhm.
sell them at conventions and stuff. And that's generally what I do, unless I have a nephew or somebody that wants a copy. I'll keep a couple sometimes just to try to get them suckered in to the
Mhm.
comic world. I have a couple nephews. I've been starting to pack some stuff away just to be like, here's a bunch of comics your uncle wrote, you know?
Right. I've just gotten to the point where like, because I don't get rid of anything. I don't sell
Yeah.
anything, even if I don't like it. It's just gonna sit in the box because it's like it's mine. I worked for that,
That's
and
funny.
but I've gotten to a point where I'm coming to terms. It's like, all right, there's only so much space.
Yeah.
Like you can see it. There are short boxes behind me. This is
Yep.
not a prop. Like that is
Yeah.
furniture at this point. And but there's like a decent stream of like review material coming in. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I gotta find some way to get some of this stuff out of the house.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna start taking stuff to youth group at church.
Oh, that's
Um,
good. That's
so
great. Well, you got to check it though, because
yes,
there's a
yes,
lot of stuff. Sometimes it's just advertisements,
yep,
that you're like, oh, I don't know.
right.
You know,
Like I
it's
don't.
funny because when I was going to this private, my mom taught at this school. It was a private school for 2 years when I was growing up for um, fifth and sixth grade, and
Mhm,
it was like this private like Christian school, but it was very low rent, and
mhm,
I got in trouble because I was reading Daredevil Born Again and this Blue Beetle book I had. There was like an advertisement for witchcraft in it,
mhm.
and oh my gosh, everybody was scared,
Yeah,
and I'm like. I'm a Christian dude, man. Like
right,
I'm okay. I just want to read about Blue Beetle.
right.
You know?
Listen, I'm not about to be the youth minister that gets ostracized for
Yeah,
for giving the kids crazy stuff.
yeah. You got to be careful. Yeah.
Right, right. So definitely got to check him. But either way, some of this stuff's gonna have to leave here at
Yeah,
some point.
totally. I get that. Yeah.
So, well, I'm excited. I'm really excited about Aquaman, specifically, because I've never read an Aquaman book, like at least not
Oh, great.
while it's coming out on newsstands.
Yeah.
I always say newsstands. There are no newsstands,
I know,
but
right. Yeah. It's like, well, do kids even know what that is?
right, right.
Back in the 1900s?
Gosh, my
Yeah.
daughter calls it that. It is insane.
Mine too. Yeah.
Uh,
It's really
uh,
depressing.
isn't it? And I'm not even
Yeah.
that old. I'm born in 91, but like, why do you say it
Yeah,
like
you
that?
are young.
Right.
Shoot. That's funny.
But yeah, so I'm excited about Aquaman. And you're still on Flash Gordon. Uh,
Yeah.
you're still on Green Lantern. What
Yep.
else is on the horizon for young Mr. Jeremy Adams?
I want to do my own creator own. I've been threatening that for a long time, and I just got to buckle down and do it. I mean, it's just it. Obviously, I'm doing other stuff. I'm running a show at Lego,
Hmm.
which has been really fun, and that takes up a lot of time between family and the books. And then there's a couple big DC announcements on the horizon that will be announced soon, which I'm excited about. One well, I can't say anything else. I'll get in trouble. But yeah, I'm very excited about that.
I am also excited, only because I feel like I hitched, my cart to the Jeremy Adams wagon. Is that how they say
Woohoo!
that? Right?
Sure, why not?
Early on, I was like, no, this guy, he's gonna be like one of the big ones, right?
Thank
And
you.
and so now it has to happen. So
Yeah, now it
whatever.
has, yeah, you willed it into existence.
e-
Let's
e- e-
go for it.
Exactly. So now I'm excited about all of those things. And of course, you are welcome to come back and discuss
Yes,
any of them, as we're allowed to, of course.
cool.
Um, and hey, now we're connected. Now I get to bug
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I'll try not to though.
No,
But
it's
no,
fine.
but you guys,
I'm just a nerd.
right? So for everyone, because you've got a Substack, you're on socials. How
Yeah.
can people find you if they want to stay connected?
I mean, you can go to spacekicker.com if you want, or you can just look for me and Space Kicker on X or Space Kicker on Instagram. And that's where I am.
Nice, nice. Um, all of this, we kind of touched on Super Sons. I just want to say thank you for making a Super Sons movie, right?
Oh,
That
thanks.
I could
Yeah.
enjoy when I thought Super Sons were gone forever.
Oh,
Like,
it's the thing that I bring up all the time. I'm like, can we just change them back to kids, please?
just de-age them.
And I do not get comfortable stares, but I'm like, you keep
Listen,
giving me opportunities, it's gonna happen.
we're all in. We're resetting things. Let's
Yeah.
just do it. Let's
Let's
just
just
do it.
do it. Let's just do it.
Right.
So funny.
Let's do it. Well, on that note, Jeremy, again, I'm excited for everything you've got going on. Again, thank you just for writing fun comics. Like
Thank you.
consistently, your books are the books I can go to and just be like, I don't know what's going on over here, but I know this is going to be a great 15 minutes because,
Thanks, man.
however long it takes me to read,
Right. Thank you.
and no problem. So with that, I will let you go. And to you guys, the audience, thank you so much for listening. Go follow Jeremy on all the socials. I'll make sure I put them in the description down below and in the show notes if you're listening on the audio streamers. And after that, I don't know what you're doing. Stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.
Comics are dope.